So in this segment, we're going to be talking about a Labour group urging Keir Starmer to back a better Brexit deal. So I found this article a bit strange because they do mention the Erasmus programme a lot above many other things that they could have spoken about, which I only mentioned a few times. I think that's mainly down to the fact that it was someone who works at a university or a university think tank that wrote the report. So it is a bit strange they mentioned the Erasmus programme. I get that universities are very reliant on EU students to come to the UK because they are charged more. And they used to have, they didn't have as many difficulties coming through as non-EU students. So anyways, we'll dig into the article. So, Starmer, the Labour leader, is coming under pressure from Europhile MPs and party activists to support sweeping changes to the Brexit deal as concern rises about the damage it is doing to Britain's economy and jobs and the freedom to move and work across the continent. So, some of this stuff would be written by people who have kind of higher skill jobs who are more able to move across Europe to do their jobs, but at the same time, it would be there for people that are lorry drivers, etc., because they might have issues. Hauliers might have issues with certain EU rules when it comes to driving licenses, etc. The Brexit deal is doing a lot of damage to Britain's economy, that the export market at the moment, and that's something we'll be talking about soon. I'll do a separate video on that in a few days. But what can we see from this is the fact that, Starmer is very quiet on Brexit and the damage that it's not the stuff in the deal that is the main problem, is the stuff that's not in the deal, as people have pointed out. So a report for the left-wing group Another Europe is Possible and separate research by the non-aligned internationalist Best for Britain organisation, these are strong Remainer groups, both strongly support the case for more active engagement with the EU to improve the deal and rebuild relations with member states. This is something I'm not against. The question is, how are you going to do it? What are you going to do and how are you going to spin it? Because you could get something like an SPS agreement with the EU that will help when it comes to exports of meats and I think chicken, and you could spin it as we want to look at getting these sorts of agreements with countries and sort of groups that have high standards like us, and you could also try and say, well, we want to get a similar deal with New Zealand as well, so that way it kind of lessens the idea that Labour are just trying to get back into the EU. We are a global Britain, we want to do trade with what was a former colony in New Zealand. So that's one way you could spin it, I guess, but I don't think you'd have too much success doing that. Starmer, a Europhile, well, at this point, I question, I don't know what the man believes anymore, because he doesn't really talk about what he believes that much. He just talks about Tory sleaze, which is fine, but unless you add your own kind of take, your own kind of philosophy onto it, it doesn't really land as badly if you just say you're doing a bad job. You need to say what you would do differently. That's my opinion. People can disagree with that, but there's been a long time that Starmer hasn't been doing well in the polls. More recently he has, but it's not really down to him. It's down to the fact that Boris Johnson's a massive idiot who relies on Tory donors far too much because he's broke. That video is coming out today. So yeah, Starmer, a Europhile and leading proponent of a second referendum under Jeremy Corbyn's leadership, has been criticised by some in the party for accepting Boris Johnson's Brexit too willingly. And let's not forget here that Starmer agreed to vote for the deal without actually reading it. So, it is very strange that he's very passive on Brexit despite being a quote-unquote Europhile. Starmer refusing to speak out more strongly about its damaging effects since it passed through Parliament with Labour backing last December. And the question that Starmer can ask people, in 2016, is this the thing you voted for? Because people were told that we're not leaving the single market. There'll be no problems in Northern Ireland. There'll be just sunlit uplands. No one was told there'd be issues. And now, you see Northern Ireland separate from GB when it comes to goods. When was that promised? In 2019? So this is something that Starmer could talk about. That this is not the Brexit people wanted. You didn't even get Brexit done properly because we still have to renegotiate things like fishing quotas and other things with the EU. So, is Brexit done? No, not really. Starmer asked at the time if Labour could push to renegotiate the deal at the next election. Starmer said he did not want to start debating Brexit. He said, if we are still arguing in 2024 about what has gone in these past 4 years, we're facing the wrong way as far as I'm concerned. But the thing is, it's like, we're not really though, are we? Because we still have to do negotiations with the EU when it comes to things like fishing and potentially the Northern Ireland Protocol, because there are things that we can do to make life easier for goods going into for exporters that want to export products from GB to Northern Ireland. There are things we can do. So his argument that we don't want to be kind of debating Brexit, in 2024, which is very stupid. He's not. When it comes to Brexit, I feel like he doesn't really know what he's doing. And what is Labour's stance? Because exports are taking a massive hit. Imports will also take a massive hit. So what are Labour going to do about that in 2024? Because most likely, there will be a point where it levels off, where we have a consistent amount of exports and imports, which will most likely be lower than our, the pre 2021 levels. So, is Starmer going to be okay with that if if we have say 10% less exports and more expensive imports? Is he going to be okay with those things, or is he going to do anything to kind of alleviate those kind of problems? I don't know, and the thing is, I don't think he knows right now what he wants to push for. It says here, but the deal damaging British exporters as well as contributing to tensions in Northern Ireland and restricting people's right to travel and work in the EU. Many pro-Europeans are looking for Labour to lead a push for a better deal short of rejoining the bloc, and Labour don't know what they want to do because they are torn between, I guess, Remainer voters that predominantly live within kind of the south of England and kind of Brexiteer voters that live predominantly more in the north of England, kind of that red wall area. But the thing is, Starmer can change the narrative here by making the point that this Brexit deal is a shambles and it's impacted, the fact that Hull, that voted for Brexit, is going to be massively impacted by Brexit because now they're not going to get access. Not only have they lost easy access to EU markets, they've also lost access to cod from Norwegian waters. Starmer could talk about this stuff and say, look, there was a reason why we worked with our EU countries when it came to fishing, because some of the fish that we want is not in and around England. It's in other parts of Europe. So by joining the common fisheries policy, we were able to get the stocks of fish that we want. We didn't get everything our way, but in negotiations, it's very rare that you do. So Starmer could talk about that sort of stuff. He could try and change the narrative, but for some reason he chooses not to. Every time he has the opportunity to change the narrative, he chooses to go along with whatever Boris Johnson's saying when it comes to Brexit. I don't understand what he's about. If anyone can explain what Labour's strategy is, please put it in the comments, and I will engage with you. If you do it in good faith, that's all I ask. So, Luke Cooper of the London School of Economics foreign policy think tank LSE Ideas, which is a mouthful, argues that the trade deal badly needs revisiting to protect jobs, workers' rights and the economy and restore membership of EU projects. I don't think workers' rights are going to be impacted that much because we were already above the base EU standards, base being key there, and also the fact that if the UK does renege on certain workers' rights and things like that, then the EU can put tariffs on British products and the economy and restore membership of EU projects such as Erasmus student exchange program. And see, that's what I find very strange, that he's kind of pushed on the Erasmus program, which is a good thing. Having that experience going abroad is a good thing for a lot of people on in the EU and also in Britain. But he talks about it far too much. One result of the Brexit deal, he says, is that Britain is having to replicate agencies and other bodies it used to be a part of when it was an EU member, and that obviously costs a lot of money to do that. Trade and economic cooperation with Europe would also be far easier if Britain agreed to harmonise more regulations with Brussels, instead of misleading the public into believing that the UK was benefiting economically from winning back sovereignty. But the thing is, if you're not winning back economically from the argument of quote unquote sovereignty, then what have you gained from it? If we are harmonizing with the EU, that means we have quote unquote lost sovereignty. So it's very hard to kind of make that argument for a population, at least for certain people who don't want to believe it. Certain people who don't want to understand the reality of the situation, the ones that eat out of the palm of Boris Johnson's hand and believe that most of the things that he says. I mean, the man went to Hartlepool and was talking about the European Super League and how Brexit stopped or had an impact on the non-formation of the European Super League, when Brexit had absolutely nothing to do with the European Super League. This guy, and people believe him. People absolutely believe him. So in the report, the person said the UK should re-engage. Quote, this should include developing a close working relationship for education. Again, he's kind of harping on that. Universities are very reliant on foreign students from the EU to come in and training, rejoining the Erasmus. Again, Erasmus Plus. and remaining a member of the European research program Horizon, which we are a part of for the most part. But the thing is, he's kind of the report that is written by this think tank is very strange because it is more focused on the universities than anything else, which I guess is kind of predictable, seeing that he's a think tank for a university. But it's very strange that he's kind of talking about Horizon and Erasmus instead of focusing more on exports, imports, and jobs. Strange stuff here. So a UK government should seek a mutual rights agreement with the aim of restoring the rights of UK citizens to work and study in the EU as part of a reciprocal arrangement, which will benefit universities because they can get professors in from the EU who have expertise in certain fields that potentially the UK doesn't have any of or a lot of. So very strange written report. So Nadia Whittome, MP for. Let me just go back to this quick. He's focusing again on the kind of EU. The rights of UK workers to study abroad, which is good stuff. The fact that British workers were able to kind of mix it up and compete with EU workers and bring a lot of expertise to fields. So just as a lot of EU workers are the same, professors, electricians, any kind of profession, EU workers were able to come here and impart their knowledge and expertise. In industries like construction where the UK is struggling. But it's very strange that this person's focused on these arguments. That's all I want to say. So Nadia Whittome, Labour MP, said this important new report shows that what a disastrous trade deal the Conservatives have struck with the EU. And the fact is, if it's so bad, the question she needs to ask herself is, why did, I think, Keir Starmer whip MPs to vote for the deal if it's so bad? Why did Labour back this? It's very hard to come out against something once you've supported it. And why wouldn't we back away from campaigning for an alternative? Because Labour don't want to campaign on Brexit because they see it as too toxic. That's the problem. We need a deal that is committed to high regulation, protects manufacturing jobs, and restores citizens' rights. The thing is, without having that just-in-time supply chain, manufacturing jobs are going to be massively impacted. Restores citizens' rights and freedom of movement. So these are the arguments that are important, but some of these won't resonate with certain people within certain constituencies in the country, and that's the problem. You have to try and change the narrative. With pro-Remain parties tempering their criticisms of Brexit and the Brexit deal for fear of alienating EU voters, the former campaign group Best for Britain is relaunching this week to champion the cause of internationalism, including closer cooperation with the EU, which is a good thing, but you have to try and make people understand why this is important. You have to, again, I'm saying this multiple times here, but you have to try and change the narrative. A poll conducted for the group has revealed that many voters, including those in Labour Leave constituencies, are broadly supportive of greater cooperation in several areas. The research shows that 59% of Labour Leave seats say that now Britain has left the EU, we should be cooperating in areas of mutual benefit. But we were already doing that as a member. We had MEPs, we had a veto, we had a lot of influence. We were already doing that. We could already impact things that could negatively impact Britain, but we chose not to engage. We chose to send a bunch of idiots to the EU, and that's one of the reasons we had problems. So this idea that Britain, people within Labour Leave seats now understand that we should cooperate in areas of mutual benefit. We were already mostly doing that. This is so dumb. Only 5% say we should avoid cooperating together. Those are dunderheads. Naomi Smith, Chief Executive of Best for Britain, said there is an urgent need to improve the current deal with the EU so it delivers for the country as a whole. Our latest polling shows that all voter types, including those in majority Leave voting seats, want the UK working with European allies to defend our shared interests. But again, Labour need to start pushing that. What is in Britain's shared interests with the EU? Labour need to start doing stuff like this, need to start talking about this stuff, because they're avoiding Brexit completely, and that's the problem. You've let Boris Johnson say what the narrative is. He's managed to run the race, essentially. He's setting the tempo, and you can't let him do that. You have to start talking, you have to start explaining why it's important that we need more cooperation with the EU. Otherwise, people won't understand it, and you look like you're just criticising Boris Johnson for the sake of it. And then at the same time, you're alienating Remain voters who maybe, people like that Femi guy and, more kind of middle class kind of libs, I guess, liberals who want to remain in the EU, who want the benefits of freedom of movement and, access to EU products without, having customs issues, etc. You have to try and appeal to them, and Labour are struggling to do that. There are people who are very angry that there's an end to freedom of movement, because now non EU EU people have to get visas like non EU people, and they see that as a bad thing. They're trying to. Some of these people are a bit racist. I've gone off on a tangent there, but Labour needs to start trying to change the narrative. That's the point. They have to start talking to people and making people understand why it's important. We need cooperation. I've repeated that point multiple times, I know, but that's what's important here, in my opinion. The clearest path to power for Labour is to look outwards and adopt strong internationalist policies that this data clearly proves will resonate with the electorate at large. I mean, the problem with opinion polls is all you're doing is capturing a certain opinion on a certain day held by predominantly a small-ish group of people. So you need to do a lot more research into this stuff. Also, you need to be careful of the framing. If you try and ask people the question, should the UK cooperate with the EU on areas of mutual benefit? Of course, most people are going to agree to that, because it's mutual beneficial. It's of mutual benefit to both groups. But when you look at the specifics of it, if you say that, is it right for Norwegian fishermen to come to the UK and British fishermen to go to Norway to fish? People might say, no, why are we letting them into our waters? People are dumb like that. But yeah, anyways, what can we gather from this video in conclusion? That there is a lot of research done by specific groups that show that perhaps Brexit support is wilting a bit in the red wall, but it's not as strong as you'd want it to be in order to make a massive impact. Labour is torn between. Brexit is torn between, does it want to push Boris Johnson on Brexit and talk about how bad the deal is, whilst potentially alienating, Leave voters in Labour seats, or does it go, and criticise and attack Boris Johnson's deal, and by doing that, you appeal to more Remainer voters and more Liberals, for the most part, but you also alienate potentially Leave voters. So I don't know what the right answer is, but obviously Labour have to go on and attack Boris Johnson's deal for all the problems it's causing and all the lies that he told around it. If he doesn't do that, then he lets Boris Johnson set the tempo, and we'll see a major loss in 2024. That's what's going to happen. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. I've rambled on long enough. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.